What's going on, everyone? So earlier I talked about the reports about Chris Paul wanting to go to LA, right? Either the Lakers or the Clippers is where he wants to finish his career so he can be closer to his family. He wants to be around his family. And I get that. Makes sense. I personally would stay away from Chris Paul. I just think he's kind of the last thing we need right now. And with Austin Reeves, LeBron, and Luka would be a bit of a redundancy. He was still very good last year. I don't want to undersell Chris Paul. He was very good last year. Played all 82 games, started all 82 games, and actually played real starter minutes, right? Played like just under 30 minutes a game, right? Which is great, right? For a guy that has had some questions health-wise, right? To kind of be able to prove, even at his older age, was able to stay healthy throughout the course of a season. Him in a backup role, like I wouldn't be upset about it. If you told me tomorrow the Lakers sign Chris Paul, like I'm not going to be like, oh my God, like as long as the Lakers solve their other needs, right? Like if it's just like, hey, we signed Chris Paul, that's it. Like what is Chris Paul playing center? Right. But in all seriousness, if the Lakers were to land Chris Paul, I wouldn't be upset about it. I just don't think that he's something we need. Right? If you work everything out first, and then, it's like, hey, we need to fill a roster spot. Let's sign Chris Paul. Sure. No problem, right? And if Chris Paul is willing to come in and play like the Rajon Rondo role, right? Where he's going to get, hey, dude, you're going to get some DMPs. You're going to have some nights where, you're probably playing 10 minutes, right? But when we need you, step up and be big for us, and then particularly come playoff time when we're in these tight games and things are crucial and we need kind of that veteran leadership. But over an 82 game season, you're only gonna play so many games. We want to manage your minutes. You're gonna play kind of that like, hey, when we need you role. But come playoff time, where you're most valuable, that's where you're gonna really see him shine. Perfect, no problem. Let the young guys get some development. Let them get some burn and some run. Time to go win some, 4 series, let's get it, right? That's how I could see him. But something that I was talking, I was making the video and then responding to the comments, and we were having the talk in the comment section. And one of the things that I was thinking about and popped into my head was Bronny James, right? I don't hate the idea of bringing in Chris Paul as like a mentor for Bronny James. Right? Like just have him come in as a guy that can kind of help. I mean, you can make an argument even to help Austin Reeves and make him a better playmaker and see the floor differently. Maybe you could even help Luka in some areas. Right? I mean, Luka's better than even the best version of Chris Paul, in my opinion. But Chris Paul, say what you want about the guy. Is arguably one of the greatest, like pure point guards ever. Right? And so the way he sees the court, his relentlessness, all of that, I think there's real value there. In Chris Paul as just being that mentor to our young guys and stuff like that. And you look at a Bronny James, I do think would really benefit from a guy like a Chris Paul if you were to bring him in. Right? Again, I don't think that that's a priority. Like, I'm not saying go sign Chris Paul right this second so that way Bronny James. No, but Bronny James is going to be a fixture. Look, I understand people, because it's LeBron's kid, feel like they can't like the guy, or they feel like, they have to criticize him about everything or think that he's going to be trash. I don't get it, right? Especially if you're a Laker fan, right? Why would you want a young man to fail? Because the better Bronny James is, the better the Lakers are. But look, to each their own. Right? At the end of the day, Bronny James is on the roster. We need him to be as good as possible. And however you feel about Bronny, he is the ideal type of player this team desperately needs. A point of attack, defensive, versatile, hyper-athletic player. The Lakers need Bronny. If Bronny James was just Gabe Vincent athletically, let me rephrase that, and more athletic Gabe Vincent, there we go, that would be beautiful. Right? Like if he's a guy that can defend and be a rim finisher and apply rim pressure and, be aggressive and relentless on the defensive side of things, but also knock down the 3 ball with some consistency and so on and so forth. Like, why would we not want that guy on our team? I'm not talking about him being a superstar. I'm not talking about him being anything other than just a really good rotation. I'm not even talking about him necessarily being a starter, right? I mean, I'd love if he became good enough to be a starter, if he just became that legit, like an Avery Bradley type. just relentless defensively and reliable at the three-point spot, can be your initiator. Because you got to keep in mind, as long as the Lakers have Luka, Luka is your playmaker. Luka is your offensive engine. Luka's going to have the ball in his hands at all time. So what do you need? You need athleticism, defense, and shooting around Luka. Bronny James could be all of that. So there is the potential that you could start him alongside a Luka Doncic, right? But if at worst he becomes, our backup point guard, right? Or combo guard off the bench, and he's like our 6th, 7th, 8th guy in our rotation, but really good in the rotation, like a really good rotation piece. Perfect. Again, not everyone has to be this super duper star. Not everyone has to be, best player in the league. Not everybody is going to be. He was the 55th pick in the draft, right? If he can thrive and shine, and look, to his credit, again, say what you want about the kid, he is a worker. He works his tail off. He's doing everything he can to improve. I'm really excited to see him in Summer League and see kind of the advancements that he takes, right? And he's facing off against Cooper Flagg right away. I think that there's real potential for Bronny to there's talks about as soon as this year, him being a rotation player. And in all honesty, if he can, if he's good enough, I don't want him to be a rotation player just to be a rotation player, but I still would like to see him get some minutes, 82-game season, right? Let him get some real minutes here and there, some spot minutes, right? Let him get some confidence. But anyway, point is if he could be a guy that just comes in, slots in, and plays a role, right? And you can bring in a guy like Chris Paul to really kind of just mentor him. And it's like, hey, we're bringing you here. Yes, we're going to have you play. Yes, we're going to need you in big moments. But the main reason we're bringing you in is to work with him and make him as the best version of Bronny James as possible, where Bronny essentially has his own personal coach as a point guard. And look, that could go for any point guard. It doesn't have to be just Bronny James. Just that's kind of the only young guy we have right now. But if Davis, RJ Davis, if he ends up making the two-way or the main roster, right? Boom, there you go. Start work with him too, right? Doesn't hurt to have Chris Paul as your mentor. Look what Chris Paul did for SGA. SGA to this day talks about he would never have been the player that he was if it wasn't for Chris Paul. He still works out with Chris Paul every offseason, right? And he talks incredibly highly about Chris Paul and how he just changed his approach to the game, right? You saw what he did for guys like Stephon Castle in year one, win Rookie of the Year. He has a history of turning and helping guards evolve and be better, right? So if him just as a mentor to these young guys, playing the Jared Dudley, Rajon, Rondo role, I kind of look at him more as the Rondo role because he can play. Jared Dudley was just the guy you kind of just had there, as just a body. But, I look at if Chris Paul could come in and be that guy, I do think that there is at least a conversation there, right? I think that there is at least something to consider in that regard of hey, it might be worth taking a flyer on Chris Paul. Because again, right now, just in general, I think because Chris Paul, yes, he's gotten better off ball than he did in his younger years, and he's been a better 3-point shooter. But his best attribute is put the ball in his hands and let him just dictate a game, control a game. Right? That's his best role. That's where you really want to maximize him. I just think he's a redundancy when you have LeBron James, Austin Reeves, and Luka Doncic. You never really be able to play him alongside Luka, right? At least to maximize his strengths, right? Because again, Luka is always going to have the ball in his hands, right? Now you could play him alongside Austin Reeves, but I thought the whole point was to have Austin Reeves be your playmaker when Luka is off the bench, and then LeBron can play off of Luka, right? You could play off of Austin Reeves, you could play Chris Paul and LeBron together, right? Because LeBron wants to play more off ball. He wants to have more off ball duties. I don't know. I don't hate it, but I think it's something that you at least consider. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass a question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me out. Helps me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.